Our next team, the Denver Nuggets. What is your biggest question? And is it why are the spreadsheets choosing the MVP winners?
No, that's funny. Yeah. Oh man, we could do a whole, we could use a whole 8 minutes on that, but I
The
won't.
awards
Um,
discourse is just terrible, and it's LeBron James made it worse by saying that tweet that said that Ja is basically too good to improve. I don't know if like that
yeah,
was
that
the
was,
one of the most
yeah,
asinine. Just
I know that killed me because it's like, man, all you're doing is just starting fights that didn't need to be started. Um,
hashtag get LeBron
this
back in the playoffs so we don't have to deal with his postseason.
right, exactly, yeah, yeah, get
I'm
him
sorry,
back
but
on a
please
zero
carry
dark
on. I
30
apologize.
mode.
Yeah.
And shut his Twitter down again. All right, so this one's really like this sounds super simple and maybe a little dumb, but can you get healthy and get Mario Porter Jr. back on track? Because if you can, you've got everything you need. They are gonna slot right in as one of the top Western Conference teams. It takes a lot off Jokic's plate. I'll say this: if Porter and Murray are back, Denver is a better team. Jokic may be a better player with less stats because it's just going to get spread around more. It's going to look, and people are going to be like, see, this guy was not that good. Look, they're better with these guys back. And there'll be a whole stupid discourse that comes
They're
along
better
with,
with better players
yeah,
breaking
right. Shocking. What a surprise. But that's it for me because they don't have a ton of flexibility to do a lot move wise. They're going to be in the tax most likely. So it's all stuff around the edges for them rotationally, and probably bringing back a couple guys. But if you bring back a guy like Austin Rivers and he is your fifth guard instead of your third guard, you're probably pretty good. You're probably in pretty good shape. So that's where I think for the Nuggets, I want to see them just kind of get their guys back. Like, can you get them back healthy, reincorporated in the offense, in defense, and just go? Because I think they've got everything that they need to be a really, really good team.
Yeah, they if Murray never gets injured last year, like I'm just very intrigued to see how the playoffs would have
Mm-hmm.
unfolded. For me, it's there's obviously that's in there. And look, I don't think we can count on Murray's coming back from a serious injury. We
Mm-hmm.
know that ACLs are not the career ruiners they used to be. The
Yep.
Michael Porter Jr. back issues are harrowing. And so we
Yep.
just can't assume that he's going to be playing in a ton of games. You still get enough, even if you just have Jamal Murray on a consistent basis. It does so much for this team. I look at this team and one of these three concerns, I think, is clearly less of a priority than the other because Murray and Porter Jr. can both be great shooters in their own right. But given the flexibility or the limited flexibility or zero flexibility that they have, just because they're going to be in the luxury tax, given that and whatever trade assets they do have, are they able to address, I would say, at least two of the three in the sense of better point of attack defense? I think Aaron Gordon's just, he's fantastic. He's going to be overtaxed in that role, and you need better options there. Overall shooting, and then improving or at least like consistent proofing the minutes behind Nikola Jokic at the five. I like Jeff Green. I like Zeke Naji, but it feels like you need a different five option there. That should not be your top priority because Nikola Jokic exists, but those are three needs that I identify for the roster. And I'm just, point of attack defense is just going to be tough to find, even if you're willing to throw your whole mini mid level at someone. And I'm very curious to see if they are able to, aside from the returns of Murray and Porter Jr., whether they're able to do anything with this roster that upgrades it or at least changes the cosmetic makeup of the rotation a little bit more.
Yeah, I don't know that they can get there money wise, especially to pull them away from Brooklyn. But a guy like Bruce Brown, I think, would fit this team perfectly with what he does on offense. It's hard because right, you have to very much believe that the 40% 3-point shooting is real and scalable with more volume. Like even if it dips to 36 or 37, but on 4 attempts per game, that's you're good there. You're solid enough. He's a good cutter. He's a good passer. He can screen. He can do all their things. I think in a way he becomes their new Gary Harris, which oddly enough, free agent, if you could, if you want to go that route, and Gary Harris is like, yeah, I'm willing to come back. But problem is they're only gonna have the mini mid level, and that's probably not enough to do a lot there. So and you can't really work a sign and trade because you're going to be over the tax apron, so you're not even allowed. And even if you get under, it just gets very messy. So that's where I start to look at if you're banking on Porter making it to 55 to 60 games, which I think would be pretty good. I think you can feel solid about that. Can you trade Will Barton? Because at that point, Will Barton goes back to that 6-man role. Can you trade him for, maybe a little more defense and something that looks a little different, for you really kind of go back into that, 3-guard rotation with Murray, Morris, and somebody, whether
Mhm.
that's a Harris type or a Brown type or something like that, I think could make a lot of sense. It's getting that move. It's a good front office. Tim Connolly does a really good job. But yeah, I'm with you. You got to get some form of better perimeter defense out there, and ideally something with a little bit of size and switchability, so that it's not all falling to, all right, Aaron Gordon, just take whoever the guy is, because I like Aaron Gordon a lot as a player. I think he gets made into this, defensive stopper that he's never really been. He's a good defender, but he's not the guy you lock onto somebody and say, all right, that guy's gone. Like he's out for the night. Like it's just that's not who he is on defense.
Yeah, and look, I feel like his entire, and you would know this, being based out of Florida, just like feels like he's been miscast on both ends of the floor for a
Yeah.
majority of his career, which is just
Yep.
wild to happen. There doesn't seem like, you mentioned they have the mid-level, and let's assume they're willing to spend it. Is that even enough to get you like DeLon Wright? I don't know. I thought about, it depends on what direction this team is going to go, but do they have enough asset equity to try and trade for Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, someone who's going to give you more defense and then some shooting? You probably don't want him handling the ball too much, but he'll want to handle the ball a bunch, I'm
Mhm.
sure. That seems like maybe the ceiling on a trade or signing acquisition that they would have. And I might even think that I'm being too pipe dreamy there, but that's the player archetype that I feel this team is short of even with Murray and Porter Jr. being like one of the inarguable heavyweights in the West. They should be, if they're healthy, one of the heavyweights in the West anyway. Nikola Jokic is just fantastic. Murray's fantastic. And there's a trickle down effect for everyone on offense. But there needs to be a very real infusion of defensive talent on this roster, I think, at least for the playoffs.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think a sneaky target pending health and return for them could have been a guy like Gary Payton II. I think you could really make a guy like him work there. It also weakens a team in theory need to get through in the West, because you'd be taking him away from the Warriors. I would think, considering he's made relatively nothing in his career, the mini mid-level might be enough. Now the Warriors, clearly there's no spending cap to what they'll spend, and they could pay him that same amount of money too. So that may be a challenge to pull him away, because we often see guys like that, when they make it, they feel that loyalty to the team that finally
Yeah.
like got them there and those kind of things. But a guy like him would make sense if you really wanted to change it up. I know he's getting a little long in the tooth, but I think he's still got something left. Again, talking fourth, fifth kind of guard here. A guy like Avery Bradley, could
Okay.
maybe help a little bit, but you're talking minimum signings, and that's is that going to be enough guy on a minimum? I don't know, but yeah, that's the Peyton one jumps out to me. He was my favorite target for every team, is I think like, man, they need an on-ball defender that can really kind of guard 1 through 3 and hold his own, and isn't going to cost you a lot and doesn't really need or want the ball. And that's turned into, where do we go, with this? But it's, that's, now we'll see. Hopefully he's back healthy here and looks pretty good. I'm a little worried. I started getting those Andrew Bogut like worries, like, man, he broke his elbow and that was never the same player again. And it's his left elbow and he's left-handed, so that's scary too.
He was like my favorite target for so many teams. I had the New Orleans Pelicans was my favorite fit for him, but yeah. And I was wondering if he was going to get the full non-taxpayers mid-level from someone, and that's what would price him out of Golden State.